We've heard a lot of statistics, and these statistics are really quite frightening. There's a tremendous amount of problems with diseases associated with diet. We can medicate, or, as we all do, we can eat. Eating the wrong things can cause these kind of problems. So let's think about using diet in the right way as a beneficial aspect of our lifestyle. So we know what constitutes a healthy diet and what constitutes an unhealthy diet. That's just fine. Problem is, we can't get people to eat it necessarily. So what about if we adopt this health by stealth principle and do that? So we do that. We tried a little bit of health overtly. We've had a lot of information about how the 5-a-day message doesn't work. You can see these mean data here. No real change in intake in fruit and vegetables over the term of this campaign. So the health by stealth message is actually quite useful. So what we're trying to do is develop healthy foods that consumers will eat, that customers will buy and consumers will eat. And I'm going to talk through just 3 examples here of some fundamental science which leads through to delivery of foods. And that's important. We have to understand the fundamental scientific basis of what we're talking about so that we can have a logical reason to provide consumers with the foods to do them some good. And there are 3 examples I'm going to choose, related to fruits, related to wheat, and related to brassica vegetables that we heard a little bit about today, focusing on broccoli. So fruits, there's evidence that by taking in servings of berries, we decrease the risk of a variety of issues. And we know the reasons why. That's just great. So we can understand quite simply that if we are able to increase the plant polyphenol content, we have beneficial aspects on our circulatory system, our cardiovascular system. And so in terms of farming, there are opportunities here because there's evidence-based science here demonstrating that, well, these things will do us good. So let's increase the proportion of these in our food supply and therefore in consumption. Some things that may be quite difficult to supply in the UK growth system, I beg your pardon. For example, chocolate could be a tricky one, but all is not lost. Pleased to see red wine in that. So that's good news to many of us, I'm sure. And at a pinch, even the slice of lemon in your gin and tonic will do you some good. Worth considering, just have that extra slice every now and again. But we need to understand what these compounds are. And if I was to put quercetin on here, then we begin to get back to David's point about an apple a day. Quercetin, important polyphenol in apples, similar health benefits. So we know about these things, and that's good, and we can use them in foods. Wheat, a bit more complicated, but we can do things with wheat, important crop. And the reason it's complicated here is that mostly starch structure in wheat is about 80% easily digested. Well, that's fine, you might think, well, we can digest it easily. Well, not really, because what we want to do, surely, is to make things resistant to digestion so that we can still eat the same amount of wheat, can't we? We can have our bun, that might come with our burger, but if that bun is rather resistant to digestion, then we don't suffer this kind of problem. Because what happens to that wheat in the bread, for example, it goes into our intestine, it is degraded to those individual monosaccharides that then hit our blood system. When we get a peak of glucose, that's not very good. It can trigger diabetic responses, it increases our weight gain. What we want to do is try to have a low incidence of glucose passing into our bloodstream. So that way, how can we achieve that? Well, we just change the ratio. So we have more of those resistant starches. So this comes back to breeding wheat varieties, conventionally bred, straightforward to do. We've seen about the wheat genome. We know where the genes are. We can do this. Produce a starch which is resistant to digestion. That goes into further along the intestine in the human. It's then converted using as a substrate being used by the microorganisms inside our gut. We've not talked about those very much today. We have something like 10 to the 13 bacteria inside our gut. We are composed of 10 to the 12 mammalian cells. So we're only 10% human after all, but we can use that microflora, that massive bioreactor in there, to produce all of these short-chain fatty acids which are beneficial to us in the lower large intestine. So win-win situation. We don't convert the starch to body reserves. What we do is convert it to things that are themselves beneficial as anti-inflammatories in a large intestine. We can do that with wheat, surely. That's relatively straightforward. It benefits everybody. Third example, brassica vegetables. We've heard about broccoli. This is part of that story. We know for some time that if we increase the numbers of cruciferous vegetables in our diet, then the relative risk, in this case to prostate gentlemen, is much reduced. So that's very good. That's great. If you've got a rumbling prostate, you can have medication, difficult to do, you can have surgery, difficult to do. What about just eating? We're all going to do that. So we'll be eating something that we can grow as being sensible for us. This is the way forward. That benefit is about the same as having a brisk walk. We've got 3 gentlemen here who are on their way to Waitrose to buy some high glucoraphanin broccoli. So this is the glucoraphanin containing broccoli here, which is a cross between conventional broccoli and a landrace, resulting in, after many years' work, crops which are on the supermarket shelves, grown by growers, including in the UK, of course, in the supermarkets, ready to be consumed, ready to deliver health benefits. And that's really quite a good model, because it takes a primary product, it understands the metabolism of the primary product, understands the influence on the health of the consumer, understanding the compounds that are necessary to deliver to the consumer, and then we can actually put it in a packet and make it available to the consumer. If we can do the clinical trials behind that, then we can put an EFSA health claim on it, and then there's a premium associated with it. So that's, I think, a really good model of the way in which farming and continuing secondary product food chain can integrate across the piece to deliver health benefits to the consumer, but equally enhance what we grow in terms of the premium and value of that in the marketplace.